That's funny. Somebody else in the journal.
I lecture asked me to do it and I'm free. Also, you told me I could charge you.
True. I did say.
And I designed your poster and the header.
Yeah, I did say you can charge us. I won't be paying it. I won't be paying it anyway. Yeah. We need to get that. Do you want me to get that? If the SE decided this also.
the same, exactly the same colour until I got to work. Rather than very delayed. Relatively
foresee in terms of 50 people attending. So we'll run through it still, and we'll do an indicative voting, and then at the next council we'll take any questions as well, and we'll basically check if it's happy to pass at the next one, hoping that we'll have 50 people then. But we're still going to run through it. So the first thing is 2 student trustees. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Bridget.
Excellent. They're the 2 student trustees. And we are also going to be approving the ratification of all the trustees of the Students' Union this year. So that is all your sabbaticals, your 2 student trustees, and the external trustees. All those for and against, raise your greens for 4. You've got your greens in hand. Excellent. Raise them 4. Raise them high. Great. And we're good to go. And all those against? No, all right. Fantastic.
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions? No. Brilliant. Every 5 years we also have to appoint new auditors. So we put out a tender process, and UNW became the new auditors, and they gave us an audit. And Simon, do you want to add a few things?
Yeah, just to say, as you said last year, you give us delegated authority to appoint the auditors, which we did. UNW did it. It was a very clean audit. The best practice says we do it every 5 years. So what we're looking for is just approval of UNW as your new auditors.
All those for UNW being our new auditors. All those against? Any abstentions? No. All right. Excellent. Thank you, UNW. So now we're going to run through the end of year accounts. So we're going to look at the annual reports for the financial year ending 29th July 2018, and Simon's going to take it away.
Okay, as per normal, just going to touch on a couple of key points for you. You've had a copy of the accounts, all of you, 2 weeks in advance, so if you've got any questions, happy to take any questions on any of the accounts at the end. But crucially, on page 16 of the accounts, and there's a copy of it on the screen for you there, you'll see that we came in with a surplus of 30,000 against our target of 40 last year. It was a particularly challenging year from a commercial point of view. You'll all recall that we had very bad weather followed by strikes, and whilst we got some mitigating funds from the university, we still came in slightly short of target. But actually, from a trustee board, and having discussed it with the board, they were generally quite happy with that result given the circumstances. What that does is it takes up our reserve, which is the bottom balance in the bottom left-hand column, up to 152,000. And for those of you who, for the first time, our target reserve is 300,000. So we need to make a couple of more years of 70,000-ish and a bit to get us to our reserve figure. Moving on to the balance sheet. Just to pull out one point on here, the balance sheet is looking a lot stronger than it was a few years back. And crucially, if you look at total assets minus total liabilities, current assets minus current liabilities, we've moved on to 353. And what really does, that just reflects that we're in a lot more healthy position from a cash flow point of view, albeit this is a snapshot as of last July. So we moved on. We didn't quite hit target. We're aiming again for 60,000 this year, and the accounts are all going well. Happy to take any questions on anything.
Okay, all those happy, all those for the passing of the stat accounts? Raise your green. Lovely to see. All those against? Any abstentions? Pablo. Those are passed.
Can't name and shame.
So
let that be minutes.
Yeah, minute. So now we're going to go through the impact reports, basically talking about a lot of the achievements that happened in the year 2018. So you might see some familiar faces, and yeah, we're going to spend 10 minutes or so on that. You've got the video. Get in. Dim the lights.
I've just been told there was a students' union that got students 24/7 library access on this campus.
Last year, your students' union committed to allowing students to word process their exams. We've secured a £34,000 investment in bus service
you're probably thinking, why we do this, but it's pretty simple. We want to help you do what you've always wanted to do, and that's what we're about at NUSU.
Long limbs.
Okay, we're just gonna run through a few highlights for you. Looking at our external indicators for last year, we were very pleased that we were 11th place in the Times Higher Survey, which we've now been ranked between 8th and 12th for the last 5 years, so that's good, pretty consistent performance. We scored very highly on the International Student Barometer, which reflects international student satisfaction in particular, and we got the 6th best score nationally and the best score in the Russell Group. Internally last year, we took on a very big research exercise to help better inform our plans moving forward, and the majority of our indicators in that survey remained very positive, albeit a couple of % down on the year before. 81% of students agreed that we were still having a positive impact on their experience, 79% felt we understood their needs, and quite importantly, 87% said they would recommend us to a friend. The facilities were still very well regarded, with 93% of students finding them welcoming and safe.
As you saw from the video, the SAB team were very active last year in representing student interests and creating change. They achieved 20 key positive changes through their Big Wins campaign, as well as running about 34 other campaigns across the year. Although in our internal survey, 76% of students felt we campaigned effectively on their behalf, the NSS score relating to SUs remained more or less the same, down 1% against a Russell Group average drop of 2%. And as per last year, 30% of students were ambivalent or didn't understand the question. So we feel that progress has been made in closing the feedback loop and getting our messages out, but any gains were overshadowed a bit by the impact of the strike action on the student body, and I think this can be evidenced by noting a drop in scores across the board. We had over 1,700 students in representative roles across campus and updated the training given to emphasise the language used in the NSS question. But that said, there's always more work to do in this area.
Looking at how we supported students last year, then the caseload in our advice centre hit a new high at 886 new cases across 70 different nationalities. And specifically, we saw a 43% increase in academic cases. Satisfaction ratings in the advice service remained high, with 79% rating it as good or excellent. And our work on inclusivity continued, with 525 students with a listed disability taking up sports opportunities or memberships of some sort. We gave £68,000 out through our widening access bursary scheme, and that also helped encourage participation. The introduction of welfare officers into clubs and societies was a big plus last year and part of our drive to make everything more inclusive. 88% of students felt they had an equal opportunities to participate in our activities in the student union.
It's very important we make students feel welcome and encourage them to feel part of the university and the SU, and this is what this area in particular is all about. So as you can see from the slide, we had a great start of the year with high participation rates and satisfaction for our Freshers Week. 92% was the highest rate we've had for a Freshers Week. Our venue events programme was also well regarded last year. Satisfaction rates again were high at 93%. After 5 continuous years of growth in memberships in clubs and societies, they seemed to plateau a little last year, but engagement levels remain relatively high, and this is also after, as I said, many years of quite quick growth. On the supporting side, the AU clubs are effectively full, and the campus sport programme we're running out is at capacity, both being effectively restricted by facilities and budget. That said, the drive to diversify the numbers of individual students on the Give It a Go programme saw an increase in 29%. Finally, just to draw out the fact that we had over 15,000 students participating in at least one of our core activities last year, which represents about 60% of the student body at this university.
When looking at developing our students then, employability remained high on everyone's agenda, and we looked to expand some of our projects. Overall, participation was up 21% on the previous year, which was great, but does present a few issues when we're trying to give everyone adequate training across the board. The report itself gives you a flavour of the diversity and the amount of training we're now undertaking with students, with 3,964 students attending the sessions. The positive feedback for us is that 74% of those undertaking opportunities said they felt more employable as a result, which is a bonus. 556 was the highest number of students we ever had on the NCL Plus programme, and I just think this goes to emphasise the importance students are now putting on employability skills. We held 6 different award ceremonies to recognise students in different fields, from community impact to sport, academic representation, media, society, and the Enterprise Awards. And of course, as you saw in the video, in partnership with the university, we ran the Pride Awards, which are effectively now the best of the best. Just touching on some other key points then, we've just finished our financial audit, we said, so we posted that 30,000 surplus against the target of 40.
Stu Brewer in the news again after winning the Enterprise Award in Philadelphia.
Our comms vastly improved in the second part of last year, as you can see by some of the stats in the actual document. We are pushing forward this year with further segmentation work, and we're aiming at delivering bespoke and personalised comms based on attitudes and behaviours, rather than those traditional just undergrad, postgrad and international emails that we used to send.
We also have 14 students signed up to our Professional Marketing Academy, which is run part of the CDM module and the NCL Plus Award, and they produce marketing materials for our campaigns and engagement work, and are a great enhancement to the marketing team. And Nest, which I imagine most of you heard about, is a project run through our Go Volunteer department, and was highly commended at the Times Higher Education Awards for outstanding contribution to the local community.
We should just mention our ongoing progress on the other campuses. We now have staff members in London and Malaysia, which also covers Singapore, and we're starting to make inroads in both areas. In London, for example, new societies and a sports club have been set up, 70 students have signed up for NCL Plus, and volunteering days with local charities have been set up. In Malaysia, we've had very good feedback on the new bespoke rep training that we're doing out there, and provided support for the Student Association on a number of projects.
And to finish on a high, NUSU won the Students' Union of the Year award for a second time in 3 years at the Educate North Awards, showing that once again we're empowering, energising and exciting students. And a lot of the people in this organisation put a huge amount of work into that, and the students on the ground also contribute to that massively. And we'll talk a lot about issues on campus and problems, but I think it's important we reflect and remember there's a lot of great stuff that happens here. So thank you guys. Cheers. Any questions on it all? Because there's a lot of numbers there. Read the report. It's good fun. So, do we need to accept that?
You vote to accept it.
You can vote to accept it. Be nice if you could. All those voting for? All those voting against? Any abstentions? Pablo? And finally, to round off the AGM, we're just looking at the approval of constitutional amends over the past 12 months. And legally, our AGM has to approve these but these have all been approved in our governance structure and council before, and the main one is obviously the new sabbatical, post-grad sabbatical, who will be a member of the trustee board. So are we all happy to vote for this, the constitutional amendments? Please put your green cards up. Voting against? Any abstentions? Cool. Passed. Thank you very much.
5-minute break.
5-minute break while we rejig the tables. Thank you very much.
Take it easy. What was the time then? Let's see my time.
So me and Jamie get I suppose you got emotions though, you probably don't want to do. 2 5 this is, well, we're already yeah, no, not quite that. Where are you on the job? 4th? I see. Oh, God. Oh, you got a cheeky extension. I've got extension down here. No one knows.
We'll begin in a minute, but before we do that, there are some people who put their name down for casual voting places, and they are now available. So if you didn't get a place but wanted one, could you please come up to the desk now? That is Miles Oden, Jonathan Douglas, and Sean Latto. So if you are them, please come up and get your voting place.
Last one I ended up watching 4 minutes of it. I thought, that's quite just a bit rude because you have to be careful what you say. Or what you say to your phone. There was one of the photos that I saw. It was the camera over there looking past the chair. And I thought, oh, I'm in the background there. We were just chatting.
So actually, Johnny got spilled. Jack cheated on me last night with my friends. The emotion that went and then I posted on Facebook about the fact that he cheated on me, and then everyone called me over. Oh, in your dream? Yeah.
Welcome back to this first council this term. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I am to be doing this today. Hope you all had a good Christmas or a good break, and I'm glad to see you all back. If you're a familiar face here, welcome back. If you're new, thank you for coming. I will be going through and explaining everything as we go along, so don't worry if you're not sure as to what's going on. Notices to council. We have filled the voting places. Apologies from Michael Wong. And some notices from myself. First off, you may have noticed the feedback forms around the room on your chairs. If you could please fill those out. Myself, the marketing team, and the Rep and Dem team have worked very hard on those and other forms which I will go into. So please fill them out before you leave today and put them in the green box here. There'll be an online council members form for those of you who are registered and permanent voters. That will be going out shortly to gather more information about how we can make council even better. On the 20th, in the planning room at 2:30 to 4, I myself will be hosting a motion writing session to encourage more people to learn how to use motions, what they're for, and to bring more to council from a greater range of people. Registered voters, we're at 43, so we're well within the minimum number of voters that we need, so don't worry about that. Please stand if you are able, and please say your name for the benefit of the tape. Please remember that we are being recorded / live stream. And so without further ado, I will move on quickly because we don't have a lot of time today. So, first off is the minutes from the previous meeting. Anything up to we start going through the motions can just go through on the green cards. Please make sure you'll have your green cards. Please make sure you're registered to vote, but I remind you of that when we come through to the motions. Okay, so minutes of the previous meeting. Those for? Those against? Any abstentions? Now, moving on to the steering committee report. Same again with the green cards. Those for, those against, any abstentions. Brilliant. Racing through. Okay, the State of the Union report. Up you come, Ruff.
I'll keep it snappy. We'll try to. So welcome everyone to, I already said this, welcome everyone to the February Council. I'll just touch on a few key things. So I want to update everyone on the work going on surrounding initiations. There's an extensive working group occurring which involves university, union and student membership. It's reviewing the behaviours that can put individual students, their peers or members of the public at risk, ensuring disciplinary protocols are effective enough to tackle the issue, all while brainstorming methods to better educate students, and they've all been very productive. It's proven to be a fantastically progressive group, with that varied membership being a real strength. It's been great to see how on board everyone is to making change, and it really has the potential to create an outcome that has genuine national impact, and crucially, continues to keep our students safe and the university environment welcoming. Cheers, Harris. I want to rattle through some key things that have happened and are happening. I can proudly confirm that for the upcoming academic year, NUSU got the university to reduce its rent prices for first year accommodation for the first time in over 20 years. We launched our textbook exchange service for all students to buy and sell to other students in the hope of saving money and saving some bedroom shelf space. Related to this, Affordability Week, known as Cutting the Costs, is starting on 25th of February, where we'll have some mad discounted deals throughout the SU, and we'll be working towards the university providing greater value for money. I know there's been whispers of half-price Shijo, and they are true. There will be half-price Shijo through the week, but I want it to be minuted and noted that was because of myself and Johnny. Cheers. Thanks very much. Speaking of which, value for money, an institution that can successfully create multi-million-pound buildings can't find a way of putting a microwave in the library. So I can confirm that's genuinely never going to happen. There will be no microwaves in the library. They won't let us. So I'm pleased to announce that we're going to put a microwave on the top floor of our union. Excellent. Guys, come on. A hot water tap as well, but yeah. So big up Rag Society for raising over £6,000 for charity during Rag Week in January. It was a massive success. The LGBT Plus Society for their first ever conference that's coming on Saturday, hosted here at NUSU. Sophie for all the work she's doing on the Festival of Culture that's coming up in March. Do go to that. Ballroom, Latin, jazz. It's going to be mad. Jack for his trans clothes swap initiative, which has been fantastic. Maisie Williams for doing a sick talk at the union. Big up her for coming. And Shijo for finally opening upstairs. If you want to know the state of the union, I say it's going pretty well at the minute. Finally, as you're all probably aware, nominations for SAB and part-time officer positions are open. Now, it's a pretty grueling process, but you could find yourself in arguably the most rewarding job you can get aged 21 or around that. In no other graduate job will you be running an organisation with over 100 employees, be a figurehead for over 26,000 students, and see the impact your work has on the people closest to you. You get to influence decision-making at the very top of the university, meet the occasional celebrity, and work in an environment where every day something new is happening. You could spend your morning tackling student mental health at the university, or the fact they're not divesting from fossil fuels. You could spend your afternoon responding to a national press sniffing for a story, or brainstorming with students how best to run a campaign, and then your evening maybe a drinks reception with the mayor of Newcastle, or repping the SAB team at a Bar Loco jazz event. It's a great job, it's amazing, but I've also touched on a similar theme before, that this isn't a job for people out to make a name for themselves. While you may be the boss of the Students' Union, remember that students are the boss of you and your union. Yeah, it looks great on your CV, but apply for these roles because you want to impact the people around you more than you do yourself. And remember, be careful what you wish for. You might find yourself debating water fountains on your Valentine's Day evening. Nominations close on the 21st of February. Be bold and get involved. That's the State of the Union. Cheers.
Okay, so like the other reports, we just have to approve Raf's fine speech via the green cards. So those for, those against, any abstentions. moving on to the general reports. I've been informed, unfortunately, the Senate report was not submitted. That is what it is. What it is. So we'll just go through about that. So those for, those against, any abstentions? Fair. Okay, so questions and mandates from the sabbatical officers. This is your chance to grill them, ask them any burning questions, and just generally find out what they've been up to. You can ask any of them individually or as a group. Anyone can ask a question. Anything on the work they do, shoot. If you could start by introducing.
Social McDermott Activities Officer.
Maggie Elstob, Athletic Union Officer.
Jack Green, Welfare and Equality Officer.
Johnny Hall, Education Officer.
Raf Marioni, President.
Louise Hall, Editor of The Courier.
Any questions for any of them? Anybody? Okay. Is there anything you would like to update council? Oh, no, go on, Jamie. Sorry.
How's it going?
Pretty good, actually. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I'm alright. Thanks, Jamie.
Haven't killed each other yet.
That went down well in the corner, didn't it?
Last chance. Any questions?
Bean cooked yet?
No. Okay. Sabs, is there anything you'd like to update council on?
Yes, please. So I thought I'd update a bit on sanitary items because that was a pretty cool motion that came through last time. There is a report that's pretty much been finalised. Big up the PTOs for having a look through it and helping me with that. So if you don't know, the background is providing free sanitary items across campus. And so myself, and with the help of Jack as well, we've been working with NUIT, Estate Service, and lobbying the top of the university pretty much to get on board with this idea. Now, it's a long process. It's a tricky thing because Newcastle University would be the first English institute to do this. So while that's a good bargaining chip, it's also, you need to give them some pretty useful facts and information for them to actually do it. So that's one update that is going ahead in terms of my research and my work towards it. I've got a few big meetings coming up in about 2 weeks where it could be potentially approved. An argument against it made by the university is, would the students be happy that their money goes towards funding this? Now, funding this scheme would probably be in the £20,000 to £30,000 region, which I think we all appreciate is about one person's fees. There's a lot more people than one person in this room. But my question generally, you can nod, you can say aye, you can give some information back. Would students be happy that their money is being spent on this? Yes, take back control. Oh no, don't use that. Okay, brilliant. Cheers, Harris. Brilliant. Yeah, fantastic. That's what's happening. If you do want to provide any help, any info, or just keep up to date with it, then obviously I sit on the right next to the front entrance of the SU, and my email is everywhere. Just get in touch. It's always useful to help. Cheers.
Any other updates from the SAB team?
Nothing from council.
I think that's it. Any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go on then. Say the main things.
Yeah. So the next council will be during the 2 weeks that are the NE Festival of Culture. So I've just finalised all the events. We've got over 30 events across 2 weeks, and that includes language taster sessions, cookery workshops, cheese and wine nights, theatre performances, jazz band evenings, Latin and ballroom themed dances, pole dancing as well if you're interested in that. There's a whole variety of different things. It's across 2 weeks and everything is free, and for the most part refreshments are provided for almost every single activity. So you'll see the promotion on that come out next week, and you can sign up on the NUSU website, and it'd be great to see as many of you there, as many events as possible.
Cool. Cool.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan.
Moving on. On to the exciting stuff for the motions. Business motions to begin with, which are still green cards. Unless anyone objects, then we have to treat them like an ordinary motion. So, green cards at the ready. I will read them out and tell you what it resolves. So the first one is updating elections, regulations and schedules. This motion basically resolves to amend Annex F as follows. Johnny, would you mind saying a few words about this? You probably do it better than I.
Yeah, this is just to amend the elections regulations to include the postgraduate sparkle officer, which is nominations for now. So I'll just put them in the documentation.
Just in case you're wondering what these sort of motions are and why we don't treat them like normal ones, it's just to deal with things that have lapsed and more formal stuff that we don't.
Routine business,
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So green cards for those. Those for. Those against. Any abstentions? Great. Moving on. Current affiliations. We're required to do this anyway, so we're doing it now as a business motion. This is just an update on NUSU's affiliations, and this one notes that NUSU currently has no formal affiliations. So it's that straightforward. Those for? Those against? Any abstentions? Right. Moving on to the constitutional motions. These required a 2/3 majority to pass. So, wow, this is a long one. This one is proposed by steering committee, motion on vacant PTO positions at election. So, Johnny has 2 minutes to talk on this motion, explain what it is about, and then we will go on to debating it once questions have been proposed to Johnny after he's finished speaking.
All right, okay, so just a bit of background on this. So in the past when we had, say, if there was no nominations for a PTO position in the March elections, then what would happen is there would be an election for vacant PTO positions in the November election. So in October 2017, Student Council agreed to instead to basically make the process of getting PTOs in quicker when there's vacant positions. They decided to do it through council. But the motion didn't address some other things, which was how the election should run. So it basically left it open so that it put a huge workload on the staff, because effectively they would almost have to organise an election basically every student council. So what this motion proposes to change is just to say that the entire procedure would be voted on by student council at student council. There's still the opportunity for PTOs to run in the cross-campus election with the sabbatical officers, so which takes place in March. It's just that if we don't have any positions filled, then the entire thing is done within that student council. It has been a council before, but it's been amended to take into account that, particularly from Officers Forum, that there was concerns that it kind of limits the people who can vote on it. So we've said that anyone who comes to student council for those hustings will be able to vote. You don't have to be a student council voting member. And then it also mandates us to look into the possibility of seeing how we can not have a cross-campus full election for vacant PTO positions, but to open it up. So that's something we need to come back to council with once we've explored that. That was basically what I have, just to stress again that there's still the opportunity for people to nominate themselves for PTO positions in the March elections. This is just about trying to have the most efficient process possible, just to get the PTOs into place if there was no one appointed in March.
Any questions? Just please raise your hands high. Go on, Jamie.
I was just wondering, so if two people put themselves forward in the council, I guess how long would the hustings be, and what format would it follow, etc. What would it look like, I guess?
It would just follow the general format we use for hustings, say at question time, really, just the opportunity just to basically people come forward, present themselves, and then take questions at the end. Timing would have to be considered, and that would feed into steering committee's discussions, really. And if we get a particularly busy council, it might be that guillotine's extended, but yeah, it would basically come down to how many nominations we get for council.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
Oh, Scott.
Hiya. What would happen if somebody who wanted to run for the position wasn't able to attend council? To attend that student council?
Yeah.
Would they still be able to run?
They would still be able to run. They just have to send in a speech.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Please raise your hands high.
It would run an October council. when we appoint people to executive committees, it would run the same way as that, basically.
Okay. Let me sit down. Right. So, we'll take 2 on this, on either side. So, anyone for the motion? Yep, go on, Grace.
Version of this motion when it came to council last time, but through the talks that we had with Officers Forum, I'm really happy with the concessions that they've made in terms of looking into potential openings for advertisements for the elections in future, making sure that as many people know that it's happening. I believe that's something that they really are dedicated to. This isn't in any way about, I can't quite remember what the word is that Jamie used at meeting, but saying that the people who regularly attend council are in some way more qualified to elect these positions. It's just a matter of conveniently filling places after the chance for the cross-campus ballot has run out. And the SABs have sort of said verbally and in the last point that they will look into deliberately encouraging certain factions of the student body that don't regularly attend council to come to council on occasions when we're holding PTO hustings.
Anyone against the motion? Yep, Harrison.
I mean, for me, there's an inherent problematic nature of this motion, but it makes voting inaccessible by restricting it to the presence of people in the room at a time. I mean, the most common thing to me is disability officer. So, you know, you're going to be electing my role based on whoever is able-bodied enough to come to council during that day, because it's not going to be a campus-wide ballot open to everyone. I mean, I appreciate that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the main reason behind the motion is to avoiding unproportionate workload of NUSU staff to promote it. Fair enough, that doesn't still mean that we have to restrict the voting to people who are physically in the room. We can still have it online, of course, campus ballot without necessarily having to, I mean, obviously, if you can promote it, you can, but yeah, I don't see why having to not put effort into promoting it doesn't mean council have a cross-campus ballot. I mean, your problem is, I mean, to look around the room, the council, as it is now, is vastly majority filled with white people, and those will be voting for racial equality officer. That's problematic as well. And so I don't see why, simply because we want to avoid unproportional effort and staff into promoting something with little voting, we should still have to restrict voting to members of the room at a time. Especially because we've got live streams, people can see the hustings anyway, and they can vote at home if they're watching it, if they so care. But that means people who can't be here for council, such as still people who can't hold up, who aren't, got the spoons that day to make council, can still vote. So for that reason, I just vote against it.
Okay. Anyone else for the motion? Yep, Pablo.
Yeah, Pablo. I think this is a really good motion because people have the chance in the first election to put themselves forward and be elected in a normal election. And this is just a matter of not spending resources, time, the effort of the employees of the union into a second election that obviously costs a lot of time, of money, that as a union we can be spending in other things. So like welfare or other efforts for the students. So I think this is a good motion.
Anyone against? Yeah, go on,
Steve Dawes. We have a chronic democratic deficit already when it comes to voting. We didn't even reach quorum in the NUS referendum. And I think that this should be put to a cross-campus ballot as well when positions aren't filled.
Okay. That's that. We're now going to move to a vote for. Huh? Oh, yeah, one more.
No,
one. We've had 2 on each side.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And yes, we are fairly pressed for time, I'm afraid. So please make sure you are now able to vote. Your devices are at the ready. It'd be a real shame to have to redo it because someone wasn't logged in or anything. Are we ready to go to a vote? Brilliant. Yep, if you just need a few more seconds. Yeah, just 1 second. we're about to go to a vote. Please get my attention if you can't vote for some reason and you should. No? Okay. Over to the vote it is. Jack, is that a problem?
Did you manage to vote?
No.
Unless check this.
No.
I won't.
Turned off Wi-Fi, hang on.
Have you done it?
Right, so we run that again. It's not a 2/3 majority. So that has not passed. Oh, we can run again? No. Oh, you did vote? Okay, thank you. So that motion has failed to pass. Right. Right, next motion, moving on. Motions to rename student with disability officer to disability officer. Harris, if you'd like to come up and speak on this.
Hopefully there's not really much to this motion. Just for context, in language theory there's concept of person-first language and identity-first language. An example of person-first language would be person with autism, identity-first language would be autistic person. A vast majority is, and as a community, disabled people prefer identity-first language. Therefore, I kind of feel it's disingenuous for my role to use person-first language when it should be reflecting kind of the preference of the disabled community as a whole. Especially when I'm going to meetings and I see documents that say call disabled people with disability. I'm like, I think that's incorrect. Say it's Harris, student disability officer. Kind of a bit disingenuous for my part there. So therefore, the motion is purely simply to rename the position from students with disabilities to disability officer.
Okay, any questions, Harris? Yep, go for it, Sophie.
Why is it disability officer and not disabilities officer?
That's just how the identity works. Disability as a noun is sort of collective noun for all disabilities. I'm covering the topic of disability as a sort of, I'm trying to word it in the right way. Disability problems is how you'd really phrase it. It's this context that's just used amongst the community.
But, sorry, can I continue or do I have to?
No, I'm not interested in David.
Because it's like, it's marginalised genders officer and like, I just wondered like disability officer, shouldn't it be disabilities officer because there are many different forms of disability?
Yeah, but it's not referring to disabilities as individual, collective of disabilities. It's referring to disability as a social topic. So I'm a disability advocate. I'm not a disabilities advocate.
Okay.
So, any other questions? Yep.
And can I just ask about your testimony? Like, who have you spoken to that kind of agrees with your point of view?
Well, that's me saying that as a disabled person.
Yeah, yeah.
No, please let me
I'm
finish.
just asking because if you said before that the majority prefer. Sorry, which one is it? The people
Identity first
yeah.
language.
So have you got any like statistics on that or any kind of other people that?
Yeah, I answered the question I was going to finish before you stopped me. Yeah, no, I mean, the wording of that is basically I am a disabled advocate in the community who has been elected to represent disabled people. So I am part of the community. I've seen different testimonies from different people who've said it. I've done talks and done discussions with disabled people about language and stuff. So, I mean, it depends how much you trust the fact that I was democratically elected to represent views of disabled students and how they prefer to be spoken about, and that's kind of the notion behind that. If you went on the internet and searched it at all, you would find it backing me up there as well, vastly as a thing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yep, Harris.
Sorry, just for clarity, have you spoken to any other other than yourself? And I understand you are Democrat to be elected, you have your own mandate. But have you spoken to any other groups about any other disability groups or awareness groups or groups on campus? I know you're parts of groups on campus as well. Have you spoken to them about this? And if so, what did they say about that change?
I've spoken to people on the topic of identity and preference of identity, such as, for example, in Disabled and Neurodiversity Society discussions, our first discussion was identity, and that was a topic of discussion, and everyone in the room agreed. There are multiple disability advocate groups online, which I'm part of, and everyone's very passionate about terminology. I've spoken to academics about it, in part my role, and they also back it up. So yeah, it's generally me having been in the communities for all my life, and it's kind of the consensus.
Me and several other people from the group.
For clarity, my question wasn't accusation, it was just,
I understand, but within the motion there isn't, I understand why you would be asking, because there isn't a clear, 90% of a group survey. It's not in a stat, but sort of anecdotally I can back up that Harris has supported students about it.
Could you stick to the format, please?
Sorry, that was my fault.
Any other questions? Oh, yeah, up back, go for it.
Could you, sorry, just because...
Sorry, mind standing up saying your name?
Sorry, yeah. My name is James Prowse, I'm a student here. I wondered if you could just give me an example of identity first language and then just people first language, because I just need to work out.
Autistic person is identity first language, person with autism is person first language.
Okay, cheers. Any other questions for Harris? Yeah, go for it.
Because I was just wondering, why you, I know because you're student with disabilities officer currently, why are you changing just this one when we have quite a mismatched array of titles? So we have international student officer, but then we have students with faith or belief officer, and why did you change just this and not all of them to match the same?
Primarily because I believe my remit, it'd be inappropriate for me to do that without consulting, and I didn't really feel I needed to. If they wanted to, they could themselves. But in terms of why I don't feel this, if you ask me why I didn't feel this applied to the two roles you quoted, I'm not sure there is syntactically an equivalent way of saying faith person. That's not really a terminology. I'm sure Grace will either agree or disagree with me with how she feels her, how they feel their position is named. In terms of international students officer, I again, speaking my perception of Pablo's role, and he's free to disagree or agree with me here, is specifically on a topic of problems faced by international students, whilst I, again, focusing on disabled students, but I'm also advocating about disability needs and rights in general, much like the racial equality officer is titled.
Okay. Thank you, Harris. Okay, so we're going to take two on each side. Anyone for the motion? Yeah, go for it, Charlotte.
I think we should listen to what disabled people want. I don't understand why there's so much questioning. If Harris, as a disabled person who has spoken to officers such as Xander Gardner, Errol Kerr, Olivia Bucknell, we should listen to what they're saying. It's a simple language change. Let's just go home, guys, like it's easy. Would
anyone like to speak against the motion? Yeah, go for it, Jamie.
Jamie Hampton. Are we not running the risk now of kind of excluding accessibility to that, well, it's obviously currently now the Students with Disabilities Officer. Are we not running the risk of kind of isolating people away from speaking to whoever's in that position? Students with Disability Officer, much like Faith and Belief Officer, it's a very clear message of what they do and who they represent. I feel like changing that may run the risk of causing confusion or isolationism within the student body.
Would anyone like to speak for the motion?
Can I put in a procedural motion?
Yeah. You may. Yeah, could you first? Okay, if you're not sure what's going on, there's been a procedural motion to amend the current motion. We don't know what it is yet. This can either be accepted as a friendly or not. If it's friendly, it simply gets added in. The proposer decides that. If it's not, then we have to first vote whether we want to accept the amendment and then vote whether we want to approve the motion overall. This normally takes a couple of minutes, so if you need to go to the loo really quickly or grab some food, do so now, but be quick.
Oh yeah.
In such cases, it can only be accepted if myself as the chair deems that it doesn't alter the motion's intention to too great of extent, and I've decided that it does, and so will not be accepted as an amendment. So the change proposed was to change the title to Disabled Students Officer.
Would that not still meet identity first language?
Okay. We'll accept it as, okay. I will accept it as an amendment, and we will see if it goes through as a friendly or unfriendly. Harris, if you could come back up. Identity first language. So, Harris. Jack, if you'd like to explain your reasoning very briefly behind this.
Yeah. So, anecdotally, it is shown that, so it was changed to students with disabilities because people prefer to not be seen as their disability define them. But we've seen that over the recent years it has changed, and a lot of students' unions now call it Disabled Students Officer, which I think is a better term. It fits in with International Students Officer. I feel like it retains more, tells more about that role, and I would hate to see this motion not pass based on other stuff. So I think this is a good compromise, and I think it fits well in with our current PTO structure. And a lot of other students' unions also have this. I haven't seen any that have disability officers, so I feel like this fits in better. And if we're discussing the pragmatics of it, I think that would be a better fit.
Having heard the amendment, are you happy to accept it?
I do not. No, sorry.
Okay, so this means.
Do I get to speak against it by that notion, or?
We treat it as so. we have to first decide whether we accept the amendment or not via a vote, and then we decide whether we vote on the amendment as a whole.
Don't we debate the amendment?
Yeah.
we debate the amendment.
So yeah, but yeah, there's no more questions because you've already had your question. So if you sit down, then we'd go to the discussion. Okay, so anyone for the procedural motion? Yes, Sophie.
So I think one of the most important things that we've decided here is that identity really means a lot to the people involved. And I certainly think that student is one of our most important identities here at the university. I think having it as disability student officer doesn't take away from anything. I think actually it means that, for example, students without a disability will feel probably more comfortable coming to talk to Harris or whoever it may be in the role to learn more about disabilities because they can identify with one part of the title if not the other, which I think is extremely important if we're going to educate and learn more about disabilities.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak against? Yep, right at the back there. Sorry, don't know your name.
Information? Do I get right reply to my motion? Pretty sure I get. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, but do I get the first right reply against the motion against my motion?
Well, you just
Just go the same format. So continue.
George gives way anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so to address that specific point and Sophie's specific point about what students would be more comfortable approaching, I've spoken to both Xander, my immediate predecessor, and also Earl and Olivia, and based on their experiences of having been in the role, most students are reluctant to engage in. Students who are disabled are more or less reluctant to kind of engage in communication or activities which kind of outs them as that. And so even to themselves, because disability is a weird identity where you're not necessarily often comfortable identifying that because of negative connotations, which is kind of point my role, but it's unfortunately a thing. And so certain people with certain disabilities will not feel comfortable necessarily to themselves identifying as a disabled student. And so anything that says disabled student can be a slightly kind of off-putting that thing. Whilst in comparison, simply talking to the disability officer about a topic of disability, again, it's more of a subconscious thing, but like that's kind of how identity and depression and how you see yourself kind of works and coming to grasps of that. And from my experiences, and from speaking to my predecessors who have got obviously their experiences, it seems to me, and I thought about this, and that's why I chose this title, people being more comfortable approaching an officer as a disability officer versus disabled students officer. I also feel it fits in line with kind of how Chris's job title is framed as a racial equality officer. There's no students in Chris's title, and whilst both our positions are obviously focused on student needs, by the efforts of advocating for either racial equality rights or disability rights, we're still effectively making the world hopefully step by step a better place for both those marginalised groups. Even though we're technically targeting students, it still affects and campaigning and awareness that helps everyone. Those are the reasonings behind it. So I did think about it. I did go through two things, and in my opinion, I think disability officer is the correct one to go with.
Okay. Those against the motion?
Against the amendment?
Yeah, against the procedural motion in terms of.
For.
Sorry, my mistake. So, anyone for? Yeah, go for it, Jack.
Yeah, I just want to say as well, things like disabled students allowance. I think students coming to the university will recognise disabled students allowance that they get before they come to university. So might have, it might seem more relatable to them as well.
Okay. Lastly, those against. Yeah, go for it.
So I don't really think that's relevant as a point. Not all students who will identify as disabled get the DSA or the Disabled Students Allowance. I also think that what Harris said about the ability to engage with disability as a subject is really important because, for example, I can approach Charlotte as marginalised genders officer without having to specify my gender, in the same way that I could approach Harris about disability, so disability accessibility, disability allowances, without having to specify what my disability is or to talk about it in too much depth, say whether it's a mental health concern or a physical health concern. I think that this is something that disabled students are telling you that they want, and it's really important to listen to them. Yeah, Harris is correct on this, and it is the most accessible version of it, in the opinion of disabled students. So.
Okay, we'll now go to a vote. To be clear, we're not voting on the motion that was proposed, we're voting to whether to accept this amendment, okay? Yeah, I haven't got it in front of me anymore, but...
It's also on the slide when you go to the voting slide.
Okay.
No, it needs a simple majority.
Yep. Okay, so procedural motion just needs a simple majority, while when we come to vote for a whole, we will still need a 2/3 majority. So, to change the title to Disabled Students Officer, okay?
So people will be voting
Yeah.
yes or no on that matter.
Yeah, the yes will mean that's what will now be altered in terms of the original motion, okay? No if you don't want this amendment, just to be very clear. Please make sure you're able to vote and log in. We do not want to have to rerun this vote. Please wave at me if you are unable to vote right now. Brilliant, okay. You have to the end of the music. Oh.
Is everybody clear on what they're voting on?
Yeah. Is everyone very clear on what we're voting on? Yeah? Yep, everyone ready? Yep, brilliant. Okay, to the end of the music. That has not been accepted. That amendment has not been added. Right. So, we're going to now vote on the discussion and vote on the motion as it is.
I don't believe we had 2 people speak for and against.
Yeah, so we're going to go back to the discussion for it. So, we're going to effectively restart. So, could we have 2 on each side? Anyone for the motion? Go for it, Sophie.
After that procedural motion, I have to say, if this is what Harris, as the representative of disabled students, would like, then I'm all on board.
Okay. And anyone against the motion? No. Anyone else for the motion? Yep, right at the back there.
I think it's very strange that people are getting hung up on the exact phrasing you're saying, that people looking at this won't understand what the purpose of the role is. Any neurotypical person looking at students with disabilities and disability officer will know it's the same thing. There's going to be no confusion. It's like, come on. This is purely for people with disabilities, and you know, this is what they're saying, that that this would help them, and this motion is to help them, so we should do it for them. I think, you know, I don't think any able person is going to be confused, honestly.
Okay, and lastly, anyone against? No? Okay, so over to a vote. Again, please make sure you're logged in. Please wave at me, make a noise, get my attention anyway if you are not ready to vote now. Anybody? Everybody? Brilliant. Go for it. To the end of the music. 2/3 majority is needed.
We're having some issues with it.
We're having some issues.
Couldn't vote along
I
there.
haven't closed the vote yet, so
We haven't closed it.
you should be able to just...
We're connecting still.
Yes. Thank you. Everyone voted?
Everyone ready? Okay. Eyes on the screen. And that one clearly has gone through. Right. Moving on to the ordinary motions. These require just a simple majority to go through. The first of which is food waste bins in Newcastle campus libraries. Emily, could you please come up to speak on this? You have 2 minutes. The floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Emily. Most of you probably don't know who I am, but I'm Secretary for the LGBT Society, so this is a little bit out of my remit. But basically, noticed a lot that there aren't many food waste bins in the campus cafes. They already have them across the campus in offices and in the kitchens, so why not spread them to places where students get together and eat, basically. I've noticed they've been dotted around a few places. I've heard people saying there might be some in your space. I haven't seen them personally. But I know that there definitely are some on campus. They already get rid of this waste. The waste is already there. Why not make a separate bin to put this waste in and do something good with it? Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? Please raise your arms high. Yep, go for it.
I think the traditional colour is green.
Simple. Any other questions?
What? No, I don't have one.
Any other questions? No? Looks like you may sit down. So again, we will have 2 for and 2 against. Anyone like to speak for the motion? Go for it, Jamie.
Well, hey, I'm Jamie, and I'm really in favour of this motion. Because if you think about it, if you don't have like a food waste bin, what ends up happening, I've seen this, it's disastrous. What people do is they have food waste in their recycling, then they put it in a recycling bin. And you know, you have to spare a thought people working in recycling plants, because you know, if you're sifting through this recycling, you don't really want to have some mouldy tomato in your hands, so I think it's good.
Anyone against the motion? Anyone else for the motion? Yes, Johnny, go for it.
Yeah, just to say that when me and Raf had a meeting with the library, whilst they weren't very supportive of microwaves, we did bring this up and they said this was something they probably have to look into. We could come up with a conversation with the states as well. I think just getting councils back on this really reaffirms the student support, so I urge everyone to vote for it.
Right. Lastly, anyone against the motion? No? Okay. Over to vote. Simple majority needed. Please wave at me again. Make a noise if you are unable to vote. Anybody? Okay. And that one has gone through with unanimous support from council. Right, moving on. Motion on more water facilities on campus. Sorry. Charlotte, would you like to come up and speak on this? You have 2 minutes. The floor is yours.
It's basically on there. I'm not going to keep you too long. I just think we should have some more water because I get thirsty. I don't know about the rest of you. And it's just a bit annoying when there's not that many, and the one in the Student Advice Centre is like hidden away, kind of behind desks and stuff, and sometimes at Luther's they're busy, shockingly. So yeah, I just think we should have some more water. That's literally it.
Okay. Any questions? Go for it, Johnny.
Sorry, just, yeah, the results are there now.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yep, at the back there. Sorry, could you say your name? Sorry.
Danielle Hurst. Is that like taps for like free water, or is that like vending machines with bottled water?
I would like free water, so like water fountains kind of thing.
Any other questions? Yep, Jamie, go for it.
Does it come in still and sparkling?
Sparkling water is disgusting, so
Good answer.
Any final questions? Yep, go for it, Ralph.
Just on the result, maybe Leeds, I think it was Leeds. Why do you think it's not fair that there are 4 water facilities in a 5-floor building?
Well, because until you told me that one's an activities office and Student Advice Centre exists, I thought it was only 2, so I didn't necessarily read that properly. But I still think it's not that many, especially when you include like central, where a lot of students do their work in as well. I just think it would make sense.
Okay, you may sit down. We're going to have 2 on this. Anyone for the motion? Yep, go for it, Jamie. Yeah, it's Jamie Hampton. Yeah.
Jamie Hampton. I'm all for this because there's been times where I've been absolutely dying for a drink and I've had no spare change on me, and it's just killed me throughout the entire day. Oftentimes, actually, I go across from the student union and they do free water there sometimes, and sometimes I'll just go in and awkwardly have a drink of water and walk out, which is all good. But I'm all for this motion because I think it allows people to access free water, which I think if we're not delivering that as a student union, I think that's problematic. Free water should be free.
Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Okay, yep.
Much as it's called NUSU Central, we have an official list, so we have to ask the university. You have to lobby the universities to improve it. That's everyone doing it.
Resolve 1 because the university managed the facility that is NUSU Central, so we could just lobby the university to provide more water refill stations that includes NUSU Central.
Okay, yep.
So I can even put into number 2 including NUSU Central, but it's accessible across campus. It doesn't specify any others, so I could just specify like along with that.
So it doesn't need to be so specific,
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
it
Fair
doesn't
enough.
need to be
Yeah, I can accept that as an amendment. So, Charlotte, if you'd like to come up, you can just stand from where you are, but it's up to you. So, the procedural motion is to remove Resolves 1.
So would that change the wording then to include?
It would just get rid of it in the top one, but then in the second one, because you don't specify any other locations, would you just add NUSU Central to the list of accessible locations?
Yeah, okay.
So,
That's
you're okay, that has been accepted as a friendly amendment, which means you're just simply removing number 1, but we're saying that NUSU Central counts as part of number 2, essentially, because it's not specified. Just anyone who's unclear, we've removed Resolves 1, which reads to mandate NUSU to add a water facility in NUSU Centre and to work towards adding water facility in Luther's Bar. But under Resolves 2, NUSU Centre can count as that anyway, effectively. Okay? Doesn't really change the motion. This has been accepted as friendly, so once that has been added, or removed rather, we can go straight to a vote, and just one vote this time. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So, again, simple majority, devices at the ready. Everyone ready? Yep, okay, to the end of the music. That motion has passed. Sorry. Yeah, Jamie wasn't here. Right. Sorry, but we are pressed for time, so I'd like to move on. Okay. Next motion, and that is our final motion for this session. So, motion advocating use of the search engine Ecosia as Newcastle University and NUSU's default search engine to improve sustainability. Jamie, if you'd like to come up. Oh, he's not here. Sorry. Hey, just in time, Jamie.
So what did I miss? Did it pass?
Yes, it passed with 95%. Right. Here's the proposer, everyone.
Right, well, I'm Jamie. Last time I did this, it got shot down spectacularly. And basically people asked that I attach more information to it, so that's exactly what I did. And I will bring it back again and again until this passes. But at the very least, it's nice to be reunited with this motion on Valentine's Day. So yes, I'll go through it. We have stated commitments to saving the environment as much as we can. As you're probably aware, internet searches on computers use a lot of electricity. All those servers need to be run somehow. Ecosia is a company that instead of using advertising to go into profits for their shareholders, what they do is they take 80% of the profits and they put it into conservation programs, basically, in the developing world to plant trees. And this is a bit outdated, but by now they think they've planted 50 million. With the remaining 20% of the profits, they don't actually give it to their shareholders. They put it back into Ecosia for further investment, new servers, etc. Can you go back?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. They also, their servers also run by solar energy, so they should be carbon neutral. They calculate, interestingly, that because of all this, they think that every search with Ecosia removes 1 kilogram of carbon from the atmosphere, which is pretty cool. They don't use Microsoft servers as such, but what they did was they basically bought and adapted the Microsoft Bing search algorithm. If you vote against this, that's probably your best reason why, because you really hate the way that Bing searches for things, because it's more similar to that than it is to Google. Yes, also they don't use your data. Don't take your data and sell it on or whatever. They don't record any of that. So I would argue if you're worried about that kind of thing, it's better for your own privacy too. I just don't like the idea of making people
Sorry,
making
Jamie,
money out of it.
that's your time.
What? Well, basically vote for it because it's good.
Yep, right. Okay.
Thank you.
Jamie, questions? More time to speak. Look at it that way.
Exactly.
Any questions for Jamie? Yep, go for it, Sophie.
How many members of staff did you ask about this motion before you put it forward?
Approximately you guys. Approximately like you guys a while ago. That's the answer to that question.
6 sabbatical officers.
Yes.
Right. Any other questions? Yep.
I don't think I was asked.
Yep, right at the back. Sorry, the hand up.
Sorry, of those 6 sabbatical officers, could you put your hand up if you would like Ecosia to be your main browser, just out of interest? Did any of you?
I feel like that's a
Oh, you can still use other things, by the way.
So nobody actively really wants it. Nobody
Could we address questions to the proposer, please?
Don't stick to the rules, it's not fun.
Any more questions? Yep, right at the back there. Sorry, say your name,
I think I asked
please.
this last time as well, but I'm not sure if it's been covered. But there are other search engines that do some things similar in terms of tracking and saving the environment, like this, including DuckDuckGo and Blackhole. Have you done research comparing the different search engines together and have come to the conclusion that this would be the best one?
Yeah.
Elaborate?
Well, basically, I just think Ecosia is got a good corporate structure. They give their financials monthly. They don't use your private information. They have a whole ream of charities they work with across the developing world in Africa and South America. Essentially, there may well be other good websites to use, but I thought this was a good one. And it's a big improvement over something like Google. And I do want to say, by the way, there's nothing stopping you from using Google Scholar or whatever. It just makes this imagine one time only, right? this would make Ecosia your default search engine, but you can still swap it back to Google Scholar, whatever you prefer.
Okay. You may sit down now, Jamie. No, we don't have a lot of time. Jamie, if you could sit down. Okay, now for the discussion. We will take 3 on each side for this one. So, who'd like to kick us off for the motion? Yep.
The conclusion at the end of last council was that you wanted more research. Jamie has done that research, and it's in the motion as it's been presented. It makes sense. Any of the arguments that were brought last time and that have been hesitantly brought this time, we've addressed them already. You can change the browser if you want to. You may also use a different browser if you personally think it's more effective than Ecosia. This just makes it the default policy for NUSU, and it's a good motion. Please just pass it.
Anyone against the motion? Yep, go for it, James.
Hi, my name is James. Firstly, I'd just like to say it's commendable you bringing the motion back in that it shows that you're dedicated, which I love. But unfortunately, I have to argue against it. I think there's 2 reasons for this. I've no problem with the resolves one. What the student union does is sort of its own business. However, the second part about lobbying the university as a whole is what I kind of disagree with. There's 2 reasons. Firstly, because any rep here who's involved in education knows that student staff committees are very busy, they're often quite time consuming. And I was here when we used Bing and Internet Explorer, and as a result, this was something that came up really regularly because students were dissatisfied. It was a pet peeve of theirs that wasted student staff committee time and just people's time in whole. And it was the reason the IT service eventually just went to Chrome and Google, because it was a real sort of disagreement. If Ecosia and Bing are superior, then let students choose for themselves. Don't try and force it on them. That's part of what we're here at uni for, isn't it? To sort of make our own decisions and learn about that. And then the second part is that I think it's sort of going to be bad for staff and postgraduate students, postgraduate students especially, because staff and postgrad students, you know what they're like sometimes. They don't appreciate a massive change, especially because they like to have their own setup. A lot of their PCs are set up in their own specific ways. Postgraduate students in research labs as well. This is just going to inconvenience thousands of people around the university who may not be the most technologically able, we know how they are, and we've got sort of a limited political currency in the students' union. If we're going to use some of our time available in our political currency to lobby on this issue to them, I just don't think it's effective. I think we could do it on more student-centred stuff that's more important to, or what that I view as more important to the student body as a whole. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone like to argue for the motion? Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So, you or me? Who? Me?
Yeah,
okay.
Grace.
Sorry. So, as you were saying, your first point to choice about, I think it was about choice, yeah. Your first point regarding choice, this is something that can be reversed with about 4 clicks. I don't want to step out of my remit, but I think that that's not something that postgrads or professors will find difficult. Bing has come quite a long way in the last 4 years. I know it's not everyone's favourite, and I agree with that sentiment, but I think that the difference between Chrome and Bing servers is now negligible to the fact that you can now, they're basically the same, and the difference between them is outweighed by the ecological benefit of using Ecosia. It's still, yeah, you can still use whatever search engine you provide. It's something that won't take that long to change, and I think that this is something that is really important in terms of you're talking about our political credit, as it were. This is something that is a small change, but it's a noticeable change, gets the word out there, it's good for public-facing stuff if we're going to be cynical about it. And it also, if we can't pass this, how are we supposed to pass harsher things to do with fossil fuel divestment, to do with the way that the university spends its money, to do with green spaces at university? So it's just a really important first step. It's not everything, as you were saying, like it's not the biggest.
Sorry guys, I'm going to have to cut you off there. We need to move on. Okay. Second one against. Go for it, Raf. Guys, if you could be quick.
If you care enough about it, you'll already probably have it as your default browser.
majority of students and staff, probably from what I've spoken to them about, because I have spoken to more than 6 members of staff, don't want this to come. It's a waste of our one staff's resource who would go around having to change all of these computers just to have it changed back. And in terms of things that really matter to students, I'd rather spend my time sat in a meeting with the university vice-chancellor talking about divesting from fossil fuels than pandering on about a search engine which people can change to if they're really passionate about it. If you want Ecosia as your search engine, change it to Ecosia. If you want DuckDuck, whatever it is, change it to that. But I'm not about to spend some of our valuable staff's resources and time changing this for students that aren't that bothered by it and would probably change it back. We have so many really important things to do that can make really big change to the environment, like divesting from fossil fuels, which we should be working on more than doing this, in my opinion.
In future, could you be really short when you speak on it? It's not another 2-minute speech, okay? No. Sophie, it's not just at you, okay? Just a general thing. Sorry, we are pressed for time. Okay, last one against. Oh, yeah, sorry. Last one for, then last against. Go for it, Jamie, real quick.
Right, so I think that greatly overstated the amount of work there is, the great deal of benefit there is. It was just passively accrued over time. And yeah, the thing is, people don't care. People log on to their computer and they use whatever search engine is there, they use whatever Google is there. That's the point. We want the default thing to do to be the right thing to do for the environment. And I do agree with Grace. If we can't do something so simple as this, then how are we ever going to fulfill our ecological commitments? This is something which can be done once, and then it's just kept the same. And over years, we'll plant tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of trees. That's just a simple change to make, and it's good. It's really so simple, and that's all there is to say about it.
Okay, final one against. Yep, right at the back.
Sorry, man. I don't know if Levi's here, but Levi spoke last time, and he was really, really convincing. And I know that Jamie has gone away, and he's tried to, and you have, and you've done your research, and you've looked at stuff. But I think the suggestion was made earlier that all of those problems have been solved, but they haven't. Levi made the point that that Ecosia it's still not charity. It's a social. Where the profits go. Absolutely. But that was one of the draws in the first place of the ethical commitment that it has. But it does turn a profit, and it goes to good places. I'm sure. Levi also talks about the fact that.
Jamie, stop. First warning.
So I genuinely think that's enough. But then going back to this, the Bing servers as well is the fact that this still does have a detrimental environmental impact. It was talked about the 4 clicks. Actually, each Google search any search has a negative each search has a negative consequence on the environment. That's the way that energy works. And so in going through servers and that, and it's an inconvenience on that. And actually, I don't think that they haven't changed the way that their servers are sourced by energy. It's still an environmentally unfriendly way of doing it. There isn't a positive way around it. And all it's doing is it's adding people who are confused, trying to find Google Scholar. For courier editors in this building who would have their search engine changed, who would have to go onto Ecosia, search for Google, go onto images there, and then search because they have to look for image-free rights. And it doesn't change anything, and it's still emotional inconvenience people. And I know this comes from a really good place. I know you wouldn't be putting it forward if you didn't think that if it was coming from a good place. But this is just an inconvenience for people. And there are so many amazing more things that I'm sure you and many other people who care about the environment will put their time towards. This just isn't the solution to that.
Okay. Right. Point of information, that was factually inaccurate.
Really quick, Jamie, you have about 10 seconds.
Okay, you were mentioning the servers, for example. No, the servers aren't owned by Microsoft. They're not Bing servers. They're owned by Ecosia, and they're run entirely by Ecosia's own solar energy. So yes, it is sourced in a completely different way, and I mentioned that earlier. So all they do is use the algorithm.
Jamie, time's up. Okay, that wasn't really appeal anyway. Okay, so we're now going to go over to a vote. Please make sure you are ready and able to vote. We do not have to rerun this. This is an ordinary motion, so only a simple majority is required. Is everyone ready? Yep, go for it. Motion has failed to pass.
I'll be back in 2 months.
Okay. Right. That is the end of the motions. We're very pushed for time, folks. Student notices, literally 2 very quick notices. Anyone want to say anything to council? Yep, go for it, George.
Hi, I'm George, President of LBT. We've got our first ever conference on Saturday. Please come along, it'll be great. Links on our Facebook page. And if the SU website is working yet, the link should be on the SU website, but that's it.
One more.
Please come.
Anyone? Okay, brilliant. Okay, very short. Okay, lovely. Really quick.
Tomorrow in the same room at 6 p.m. there is International Film Night. It's a fantastic woman in collaboration with the LGBTQ Society and Week. So please come, free food, you're all welcome.
Okay, no, we don't have time. Really sorry. No. Open debate time. Really quick, it's going to be a very short debate, I'm afraid, but I know Johnny really wants this. So, listen up.
Actually, I'm happy if everyone's going for a vote on whether we should cancel the open debate.
Okay. Right. Are you sure you don't want to just say what it is and green card it, or? So the open debate is, are we fined with fines?
This is basically, I'll tell you what it was going to be. It was going to be a debate on whether you think, obviously when the university, if you like, you see open capacities as done, you get slapped with £50 fine, or you get caught with drugs, you get a big fine from the university. Do you think that should be how it is? Because obviously that's easy for some students to pay, for people that might mean little how well they can eat for a week. Do you think there should be an alternative, like not community service when you commit criminal offence, but you know, like some sort of service to the community, maybe going on litter picks and jets, but do you think that would be a better alternative so that there's no financial issue with some students? But we're not debating it, so just dwell on that for the evening on your Valentine's Day.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have time for the open debate, I'm afraid, but I just thought Johnny would like to say that. So, raffle. Yeah, you should have all given little raffle tickets as you came in. I would take this chance to remind you to submit your feedback forms. Please fill out and put them in that green box there. Oh, sorry, we got it right there. I was like waiting to ring it. Okay, how many prizes are there?
There's 2.
Okay, how much are they worth? This is absolutely the last thing. Please bear with me. This is fun, honestly. So there's 2 £10 into vouchers up for grabs. Please have your raffle tickets at the ready. And then we're going to men's bar. Woo. Luther's. Sorry, it's just they said men's bar right there. Poor. Well, the tickets need updating, to be fair. So, prize number 1, ticket number 397. Please come to the front if that's you. Come to the front.
Which one?
397. Yeah, thank you. Right. Second prize, another £10 voucher. Ticket number 373. Anybody?
We go again?
Yeah, if that definitely not anyone? She's not left it. Oh, tough. Okay, and again. Ticket number 384.
Oh, that's me.
Oh. Have you come, Jamie? Maybe a little cancellation. Yeah, 384. Yep, okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Please make sure next time you get your casual places assigned for. Please submit motions. Please come to next council. And please tidy the room and eat the food at the back. Thank you very much. Council is over. Ooh, whole 4 minutes left. No public debate.